Hi everybody, my name is Erika Galantin, herbalist, gardener, and dog mom. I'm out right now hiking actually with my girl Mello, and I thought I would take an opportunity to talk to you about garlic mustard. So this is Aliaria petiolata. It's a member of the mustard family, or Brassicaceae. And being that it's March 14th, mid-March, almost at the equinox, this is really where in Southeast Ohio garlic mustard is starting to creep to the surface, if you will. And there's this spectrum with a garlic mustard that's really interesting. On one side we have a lot of people going, oh, it's wonderful, you can make pesto. On one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end of the spectrum we have, oh my gosh, this plant is the biggest villain on the planet because it takes over and annihilates entire ecosystems within the course of 2 years. So I thought that I would talk a little bit about this because, I as a landowner and a person of the woods have really been able to witness garlic mustard in its kind of nastier form. In fact, there's a place not far from here called Wildcat Hollow, which is generally in the spring, just full of wildflowers. And I can remember going up into that hollow and having this field of garlic mustard really clouding out all of these spring flowers. And it was so sad to me to see this kind of monoculture of a plant that is not native to North America can take over an entire, very important part of the forest ecosystem. So this is a kind of a moist, wet bottomland in a deciduous hardwood forest. This is where a lot of our beloved medicinals grow. This is a lot, our trilliums and our blue cohosh and our ginseng are all requiring this kind of ideal habitat, which was, taken over completely by garlic mustard. And as a landowner myself, who, I'm managing my property for medicinal plants, for bees as well, and it's very difficult to try to stay open-hearted to garlic mustard as, oh, garlic mustard is wonderful, you can make pesto out of it. When I see it start creeping into the habitat that I have created on my property, or habitat I've maintained, I should say, on my property, specifically for biodiversity. And so, for me, it's really an issue of biodiversity rather than, this plant is awesome or this plant is a villain. We can oftentimes project ourselves onto plants in that way. And I have seen it do horrible things, but I have also made garlic mustard pesto, which it's okay. I think it's worth a shot. I think you should try it and see if you like it. I think there's only so much a person can take of garlic mustard pesto, I will say. And being that I live in Southeast Ohio, where there's a ton of open space and a ton of garlic mustard, it's a little too much pesto for one person, I think, or even for a family. So, but nonetheless, I put a recipe for garlic mustard pesto in the comments below. So if you come across it and you want to try it, you can, and see what you think. It's definitely a really proactive way of using a potentially very problematic plant in your landscape. So without that much said, I wanted to introduce you to the plant, show you what it looks like coming up in March, and talk to you a bit about its botany, and and show you a little what I know about garlic mustard, and maybe talk about how I feel about it personally, which is a complicated relationship, I'll say that much. As a species, garlic mustard's got quite a brilliant life philosophy. So first of all, this plant is a biennial, which means that it completes its entire life cycle in a 2-year period. So from seed to death, we have about 2 years. In the first year, you get this rosette that comes up, which looks a little bit like this. Sometimes they can be quite large. Sometimes they're kind of just small, and a little bit more spindly. So it spends its that first year of life in this rosette form. And then second year is when it shoots up its flower. And, this is quite a promiscuous plant in regards to pollination. So it really is pollinated by a variety of different insects, both native and non-native. And if insects aren't around to pollinate, it will self-pollinate. So the creation of seed is inevitable, regardless of whether or not there are available pollinators. What's incredible about the prolific nature of this plant is that a single plant is capable of producing up to 8,000 seeds in a single season. 8,000 seeds in a single season, one plant. And these seeds are kind of projected out of these seed pods. So they can fly quite a distance, and they can actually remain viable in the soil for up to 5 years. And so, once you have a really thick population established, like what was in the bottom of Wildcat Hollow there, it can take years to get rid of that, to allow for space again, for the native flora. So this is what I mean by a rosette. You can see leaves that are kind of all coming out of one location here. Some other botanical features at this stage that you could note are these, heart-shaped, or sometimes referred to as kidney-shaped leaves, and it's quite a unique venation pattern, quite beautiful. This is what the underside looks like, so a little bit more glossy. And there's a short, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a slightly hairy stem here. Let's see if I can get a bit closer. Yeah, there you go. You can see them now. So we have these little hairs that are coming off the stems. There's some right here. And the margin of the leaves is, this is serrated, right? Gently serrated, but they're not, pointy. The teeth of their serrations are not pointy. They're kind of round. And then, of course, the smell is going to be the giveaway. So what I usually do is I just pinch. If uncertain, use your nose. So you can just pinch and then smell your fingers. And if it smells like garlic, it's garlic mustard, for sure, for sure. So, as far as the flowers are concerned, like all members of the mustard family, the Brassicaceae family, you have four petals and 6 stamens. And generally, 4 of those stamens are shorter and 2 are taller. So it's, a 4-petaled white flower with 6 stamens. And that is the kind of general characteristics of pretty much all mustards. So now I'm going to show you real quick, for those of you who are interested in pulling garlic mustard, even if you're harvesting it for, garlic pesto, you need to know that being a tenacious plant, if I were to just kind of take off the head of this, it's going to grow right back. The roots usually go quite deep, and they're very tenacious. And so you want to be able to get the whole root out. That is really, really super key. So as I'm kind of digging my fingers around in the soil, I can feel, see if I can get in there a little bit closer. I can feel this area right here, which is kind of the top of the root. And that's what I'm going to try to get my fingers around to then, gently, very gently, because they snap easily, very gently, you want to pull up the whole root, which looks a little bit like this. And, don't just throw this away or cast it aside. This is something that, if you put it in your compost pile, it will grow. And so, generally what we do is we will throw them away, which is not as sustainable, sending it to a landfill, as it is setting them on fire. So we put them into a burn pile, and we set them on fire after they've dried out. And that's generally how we get rid of them around here. So here you can see, this is what the rosette looks like when it's coming out of the ground. This is this kind of hard knobbing top of the root system, and it's taproot. So, yeah. So that's what it looks like, and that's how to pull it. So as I'm pulling more garlic mustard out by the roots, I do want to say that there's a couple here, if you can see them. It's really important to, if you're trying to remove garlic mustard from your property, from a property, it's really important that you get it before it goes to flower. And the reason why is because obviously it sets seed very quickly, and if you get it once it's set seed, it's kind of like, what's the point of pulling it? It's going to die anyway. So the idea is that generally over time you want to reduce the seed bank. And so, like I say, it's March in Ohio, and I like coming after it at this stage. Not only is it preventing it from going to flower or going to seed, it's also, if you are going to make garlic pesto, it's a lot less bitter when it's at this stage. Once it starts to flower and get really tall and everything, it doesn't taste nearly as good. So, not that it tastes super great in the first place, to be honest with you, but you can totally try it. It's totally worth it to try at least once. So one last thing that I think I'm going to say about, pulling garlic mustard, before you go out pulling plants out of the ground by their roots, it's really best practice to identify them properly. We don't want to go about pulling plants out of the ground willy-nilly. That's probably as equally as destructive as allowing garlic mustard to take over. So make sure that you've got your botany down. You know what it looks like. I've given you some features of the leaves and the stems, the rosette form, and also the roots. But, one of the easiest ways to identify garlic mustard is that it smells very strongly like garlic. So, if you think you found a plant that looks like garlic mustard and you try to, key it out or try to identify it with its botanical features, but, don't be afraid to pinch and smell things, because that's really, let your nose tell you that you've got garlic mustard at hand. So that's about all I've got for you today on garlic mustard. Please do comment, about your experiences with this species, and maybe if you've got a garlic mustard pesto recipe to share, or ideas about managing it in your landscape. Anything at all. I look forward to reading them. And hopefully I'll be back shortly with another video about another species of plant that's kind of caught my eye, or caught my attention. So I can share that with you. In the meantime, please feel free to follow me on Facebook at The Medicine Gardener, as well as on Instagram at The Medicine Gardener. You can also find me over at Sovereignty Herbs on both Facebook and Instagram. So I look forward to sharing more with you as the season unfolds. Have a great week.